Welcome in, everyone, to the State for Day podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Matthews, bringing you all things AZ, and today is going to be such a powerful message, podcast, play on words here. We have Miss Lindsey Schwartz. She is the founder of Powerhouse Women, also a CEO, obviously, an author, an amazing speaker, a podcast host. I mean, you can just take over.
Going.
What else? What am I missing
mom.
here? Dog mom.
Future golden granny, okay?
We need to talk about that.
We're going to talk about that.
Because
aspiring hip-hop backup
twerker.
Dancer.
Okay.
I don't need to be like front and center, but like backup dancer.
I can help you with that.
We need to be called up to the big leagues.
Okay. Yeah. The granny part. We're going to talk about that. We're going to learn a lot today, and it's going to be, like I said, super powerful. I cannot wait. I feel like I'm going to take a lot from this as well, personally. So I'm so excited, and you're a dear friend of State for Day as well. So thank you for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so we're going to have fun, and we're going to start with a little game.
Okay.
I know you're used to hosting. Does this feel weird?
No, I love
you?
to be.
Okay,
I love to be the guest as well.
Yes. Okay. So my first question is called like fill in the blank. So I'm just gonna throw things out at you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Fill it in. Whatever.
Just relax my mind.
Top of mind first. Okay. When I was growing up, I wanted to be
a teacher.
You're like the third in a row. Like,
do you think it's because we just all like you have like that favorite teacher and you just kind of like associate with the cool adult in your life?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did. I wanted to be a teacher.
There was a time I wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think.
And then what happened?
Well, I think I just like to be in charge.
Okay.
I was thinking through this the other day, and there's a lot about what I do now that is actually teaching, but I think I always knew that I wanted to lead people and inspire them, but the model that I had of that were my teachers growing up.
Very true. Mm-hmm. So now you're honing in that purpose into other areas.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, next question. Something most people don't know about me is?
I feel like I am kind of an open book having a podcast. But a good friend the other day actually didn't know this, that I am the oldest of three. Okay. I think because I moved to Arizona from Wisconsin, and I even have a sibling who like doesn't have social media, that people forget that I have siblings. So and kind of like the stereotypical oldest child, like the ambitious one, little bossy.
Okay, I see that in my first child already. I'm the baby.
Leadership skills. And so the baby of our family is my little sister is the coolest person I know. So you get that.
I mean, I'm pretty cool. Yeah. But I'm bossy though. You can ask my older sister. Like I'm more.
You kind of have to be
grown than her at times. Listen to the podcast. I don't remember what episode, but sometimes role reversals happen.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all of it. Okay. Next question. My must-have road trip snacks are.
Okay. I am very passionate about snacks.
I didn't know that.
Road trip could mean 20 minutes going down the road. So road trip snacks. I do love like a good sparkling water. That's not very exciting, but I'm more about the beverages even than the edible snacks. But beef jerky. Yes. What else do we bring? We drove across country from Arizona to Wisconsin this summer, and I made like these healthy little roll-ups with. Now they have this is getting so off on a tangent, but it's great. Public service announcement. They have these wraps that are made of like egg white instead of like a tortilla or something like that. So I made these little like protein roll-ups. Yeah, I got very soccer fancy.
Mom. I mean, beyond soccer mom. I'm just gonna go get some goldfish for my soccer mom duties. But you're making egg. Okay, so you made this.
Like little lunch meat, little egg white roll-ups, and some cheese.
Okay, very healthy.
Yep.
What's your sparkling water choice?
Okay. Of the moment, my current sparkling water like go-to is, so they have like that Zevia brand that it's like healthier soda. I guess this maybe isn't sparkling water category, but I love their ginger ale, which just again makes me sound like an 80-year-old woman.
A fizzy drink that is.
I love a fizzy drink.
Soda.
A good ginger ale egg white.
Because like I'm a.
This is going really well.
I love it. No, I can align with you on the beef jerky.
Yes.
Need the beef jerky.
Yeah.
And I do love ginger ale too, but like a LaCroix for sparkling. I love the fizz.
I'm like Topo Chico. Topo Chico.
Also great. Also delicious. A little squeeze of lime in there.
I'm just plain.
Okay.
Give me the plain.
Classic guy.
He's a classy man.
Yeah, I felt that about you.
Thank you. It must be the leather.
Oh my gosh. Okay, next question. I don't know why I'm like holding it like very official here. This is my Oprah cards, by the way.
I actually really
love them.
Get them
for your podcast.
I love them.
All the things. My favorite quote.
Okay, this is my absolute favorite quote. I talk about it all the time. He's like a neuroscience researcher named Dr. Joe Dispenza, talks a lot about personal transformation and change. And he has this quote that says, in order to step into a new future, you have to first confront the parts of you that aren't going there. And I talk a lot in the Powerhouse Women community about how to step into your higher self, how to really like embrace that calling for your life. And what I wish more people would have talked about when I was early in that journey is it's uncomfortable when you're leaving behind parts of you, like parts of your identity, things that have made you who you are, because they can't come with you where you're going next, or you're not going to be able to achieve that next level of success. I think it's important to talk about that because it can feel really uncomfortable when you're going through it.
Truly. Wow. You just like defined my whole last 2 years of life, I feel, in a nutshell. That's really good. I really want to go into all of that, but I need to hear about the Golden Grannies first because I'm like, this is a great way to not segue into Golden Grannies, but
yes,
you mentioned it and we have to go there.
So speaking of my higher self,
Yes.
my future self, do people know what the Golden Grannies are listening to this? So if you live in Arizona, the Golden Grannies are a group of 55 and older women who do perform hip hop routines at halftime of like Arizona sports games. They used to perform for the Suns. I don't know if they still do, but
the best.
I met a Golden Granny personally. This was it was like 15 years ago now. In the airport, I was flying from Wisconsin, where my family is, back to Phoenix, and we're standing in line behind this beautiful, fabulous older woman with like silver hair, and she was just so jazzy, and she was kind of worried about missing the flight. She's like, I have to get back. My Palm Squad is performing in the Fiesta Bowl parade. And I was like, you just became the most interesting person I've ever met. But she's telling me about the Golden Grannies. I just remember in that moment having this thought. Number one, I've always loved dance. But number two, like looking at her and how vibrant she was, and at that time maybe like her mid 60s, and just like living life.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the kind of future I want to live into. So you have to be, I think, 55 to audition. So I have 15 years.
Yeah. Some time there. I remember this Twitter bio, probably like had to be maybe 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, was future Golden Granny, like in the bio.
Stop. You said
swear.
that too? Did we just become best friends?
Yes. So when you said that, I was like, wait, we can do this together
This is
because
life dreams. So it's, I mean, to the point where now people, even like in my community, know it. And if they're performing somewhere, like people just send me videos constantly.
Wow.
Or just generally of like older women with gray hair dancing or like
fabulous.
twerking on Instagram. Yeah. People just think of me. It's synonymous.
I feel like we're going to talk a lot about twerking and it has nothing to do with why you're sitting here today. But I mean, it kind of
does it?
It actually, we're gonna dive deep here because I feel like, I'm sure you probably feel like this too. Do you feel like you've lived many lives that now have compiled you into like who you are today?
Totally.
Which you're fabulous, by the way. You're ready for the Golden Granny
Always.
debut. But your past lives, how has everything stacked up to be what you are today as the founder of Powerhouse?
Yeah. It is crazy there's that Steve Jobs quote about like, you can only connect the dots looking backward. You can't connect them looking forward. And, you know, everything from what brought me to Arizona from Wisconsin, where I was born and raised, went to college. Looking back, it just was this beautiful plan that I believe was, you know, divinely orchestrated to bring me to where I am. But this probably would have been a more interesting fact that my first job, so what brought me to Arizona, was I sold carpet. Yeah, there's no way to make that sound cool.
I'm like, that's amazing. Like this carpet.
So specifically like
Sell
commercial flooring. Well, here's what I will tell you. I still walk into rooms and I will notice, I'll take a look and be like, wow, they really have been neglecting their floor maintenance program. Could you really use a hot water extraction over here?
We did get this cleaned.
It's sickening.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
And then the guy asked us if we knew about traffic. You know, like foot traffic?
Like traffic, yeah. How much foot traffic you get.
Like, we understand foot traffic.
You need like a good cushion underfoot is another term. I could teach you all the terminology.
She knows.
Do you still have any like connections?
No, absolutely not. You know, what was so sad about it is when I worked for this company, it was like a major flooring manufacturer. It was like before I owned a home or anything. So the employee discount did nothing for me. But I moved here with that company because growing up in Wisconsin, it wasn't like there were a lot of companies that recruited on our campus, and I was fortunate enough. I did this national collegiate sales competition.
Oh wow!
And placed fourth in the nation. Like, if I didn't even want to do sales, didn't think I was good at sales, but what was cool is I got a lot of really great job opportunities out of that, and this company heavily recruited me and basically moved me somewhere it didn't snow. They gave me a car and a cell phone, and eventually that's actually how I met my husband. So I moved here through that company, but what was interesting is the timing of it. I got through my training in about 2007, really was starting my career in 2008, and then the recession hit. So here I was in the commercial construction industry, and Arizona was hit pretty hard. It was like really slow to recover, and we were handling like multi-million-dollar school contracts, commercial contracts, and it was the first time, honestly, that I ever had the thought, maybe I should have a plan B. Like, maybe I should start a business of my own, or I don't even know what that would look like, because I actually didn't know entrepreneurs growing up, or it wasn't obvious to me that there were people around me who were entrepreneurs. So that led me to my first business, which was in network marketing. I sold like health supplements for a couple of years.
Yes.
I know, it was awesome, and it was such a great experience to like learn about business, learn about marketing, learn that at the end of the day, it really was about, serving people, helping people. And even though I knew that probably wasn't for me forever, that was like my first foray into entrepreneurship, and it changed my life. I mean, it really taught me that. Wow. I think going back to that little girl who knew she was a leader, wanted to impact people, it taught me that, number one, I'm not meant to have a boss. Like, I really work best when I can.
Don't forget, you are the boss. You're the oldest.
I know. It really, I think, spoke into that, but it also showed me just what an impact, you can make by sharing your story and using your voice. And eventually that inspired me to go on and do the work that I'm doing now, because I met so many other women specifically who would look at the life that I'd created, which wasn't even like the epitome of success, but I had freedom, I could travel, I was doing something I loved. And I think we can feel that energy from people when they're like truly doing something they love. And people would reach out and say, gosh, I'm inspired by what you've done, or I would love to do something of my own. And in the next breath, almost every single time, these brilliant women who had just as much potential as I had would start to tell me why, but they weren't ready, and they were kind of scared, and they were worried about what people would think and didn't know if they had the time. And every time I would sit back and go, wow, we all feel that way. Like, anyone you see who's pursuing their big dreams, I feel afraid almost every day. I still deal with fear over 10 years into my career. And it made me realize, okay, we're doing people a disservice if we're not sharing the hard parts, we're not sharing the ups and the downs, to drop it low.
Drop it like it's hot.
And just twerk a little bit.
You just have to twerk it off.
We're going to roll with anything. But we're really doing people a disservice if we're not sharing both sides of the story. And that ultimately, just that little idea that we needed to be more open about like what entrepreneurship really looks like, so that people didn't take themselves out of the game before they ever got started. That was really the heart of what started the Powerhouse Women community, and that's grown into this global community that it is today.
Holy cow. Like, you're just speaking my love language here, because, I'm in network marketing.
Yeah.
I'm a baby, 3 years in.
Yeah,
but it's completely
so fun.
transformed my life. Completely. Yeah. And I really feel like it is a vessel to whatever you want out of life, whatever. Truly cling on to that purpose. And I can't tell you how many people, I loved my job. It was my dream job, but now I'm living like my dream life.
Yeah.
Right. And so being able to do things like this that fuel me in different ways, and it not be about like just a paycheck or things like that. But I always tell women that, because I see it's really hard in network marketing, and we can get into a little bit of that. But so many, like what you said, so many women give up too soon because they don't understand the patterns of business, right? And it's like, I think it was Tony Robbins who said, like, great leaders, business owners understand patterns and the waves of business. And if you can, and even what you're doing now, it's not network marketing, but it's business.
Yeah.
It's all business. And if you can understand the waves of it, then you can sustain it. But too many people fall off in those,
so true.
those valleys. So what would you say or what did you say a lot of like leading in your prior business to women who did have that like, this is not for me, or the fear factor, or what will people think, because that's everywhere, right? And so what would you used to say to those people?
I mean, everything you said is so true. And I think what I had to learn the hard way, it didn't happen overnight for me. And it took a lot of patience, is that back to that quote I shared earlier, my business always grew on the other side of like a personal growth. So I really went to work on my mindset, on learning how to overcome my fears, because the fear isn't a sign that you're not going in the right direction. And I think so often people interpret it that way, like, because I'm shy, because I have this fear of rejection, because I'm afraid of people criticizing me, I am not meant for this. But then in their heart, they have this huge vision. And I remember just the best way I could put it into words, and I feel like you feel this too, is like, I just knew I was meant for more. I couldn't tell you how I knew that. I didn't even know. I still to this day don't know the full picture of what more looks like. I still wake up every day now, and it's not coming from this place of like, what I'm not grateful for what I have. Right. It's just this knowing that my life is meant to be used in a really big way to serve people in a big way. So we have to, I think, connect in with that vision and realize that if you have that feeling, just like you and I have that feeling, that fire inside, is that feeling is given to you for a reason. It's not an accident. Yeah. And often the fear is going to feel just as intense, if not a little greater, until you realize like the role that fear plays in the whole picture, because the fear is really just pointing you toward, here's your next opportunity for a breakthrough. So in my network marketing career, a lot of what I was overcoming was this fear of criticism. What were people going to think? If I became successful, were they going to judge me? There was a lot of just fear of, how are other people going to perceive this? And until I really learned to overcome a lot of those fears, my business was doing well, but it felt like it was limited just by my ability to really stand in my own confidence. And it's not like, I think people throw around just like, oh, just don't care what people think. Yeah. Well, that's great. If you're dealing with very deep-rooted people-pleasing tendencies like I was, that's like telling me not to breathe air.
Yeah.
So I just had to learn a lot about that and transform these patterns. So I think what I would tell that person is, the fear is just showing you where your next breakthrough or your opportunity for a breakthrough is. And on the other side of that, when I went to work on those more personal breakthroughs, overcoming my fear, all of a sudden my business would have this big leap. And I wasn't even doing anything differently. I was still consistent. I was doing the work and doing the effort, but I changed.
Yeah, that is so true. I think, I was actually reflecting on this thought this past year. Like as soon as the year started, I kind of was just like organizing all the things. And this thought kept popping up. And it was the fact that I feel, specifically with women, and this is like your target audience, is what you do, specifically with women, there's such a drop-off in business. And I'm like, what is it? And it's exactly what you were saying. It's the belief, that core belief in yourself, and like the confidence. I can't tell you how many women I've talked to. It just brings me tears to my eyes sometimes. It's like, you have it, but you don't believe it. And so now what you're doing is really instilling that belief at the core, so then they can pursue whatever avenue they pursue, right? Is that kind of what got you to this point of starting Powerhouse?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to give the feeling that I had inside to the women around me who were maybe a step or two behind where I was in the process, because I remember what it felt like to feel really paralyzed by that fear. And I remember just having those two feelings anchored in me, the feeling I knew I was meant for more, but the feeling like the fear was keeping me stuck from even taking the first step. And it wasn't until I started to take those steps while terrified, like, to be honest, that I started to build that confidence. And that confidence is what I realized I really wanted. It wasn't even the money or the outward success. That was just really a bonus. What I was really after was the personal transformation and the feeling of confidence that it gave me. So if I had been sitting here with you 10 years ago, you know, at the beginning of my network marketing journey, it would have been a very different version of me. And I think people now who I'm just meeting in this season of my life, it's easy to think, well, she's always been confident, or she's always just felt really able to stand in her own strengths and stand up on a stage and speak. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So I just think it really helps us to see examples of people who had the same fears as us, overcame them, and it just shows us what's possible. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I always say by doing, that's how you gain confidence. That's why you have the conviction. You're not going to be perfect on stage the first time. The first video that you do, you're going to be sweating, shaking, mumbling, like all the things. But you gain a different confidence that even when you might mess up on stage or on camera, it's the reps. It's that you're in your own skin finally. But it takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Yes.
To have that type of conviction. My question with that is, when you started your business, now transferring like the vessel now into Powerhouse, what did you work on specifically? Think of like the listener listening in and they're like, okay, I do have the struggle of fear and all of that. What can I do to get over that? What were some tangible steps that you worked on your personal level, on your mindset, that someone can do today, can start today?
Okay, so I'm going to kind of share a little bit of the backstory of really what inspired Powerhouse Women in order to answer this question, because what I realize now and what I'll teach people is it was actually rooted in community. And this ultimately is really what Powerhouse Women is about. It's surrounding yourself with the support community who you can be really bold and share the biggest version of your dream with. Because I don't know about you, but like for me, not everyone gets to hear the full vision of my big dream because they just really don't even care to, nor do they know how to support that. And when I was really new, sharing it with the wrong people might have actually been really detrimental, because I was at the point where I didn't have my own confidence. And the moment someone else would have been like, well, that's dumb, I would have been shaken. So I think it's really important, especially if you're in the earlier stages, to surround yourself with a supportive community. So here's what that looked like for me that I think relates to everyone. Powerhouse Women started kind of on accident when I wrote my first book. And what happened was I was in a season of restlessness, really just praying for direction. And I knew my life was supposed to be used for something really big, and I didn't feel like I was living up to that. And I end up seeing a post by just an acquaintance, not someone I knew super well, on Facebook. That was like the big platform at the time. And it just said something about she was doing a program to help entrepreneurs get their message out in the form of a book. And to this day, I have the screenshot of the message I sent her, because I remember that feeling overcome with this sense that I was supposed to reach out to her. So the message even says, I don't know why I'm reaching out to you, but something inside said, hey, you're supposed to do that. So I end up joining this writing program, not even sure why I wanted to write a book or what it was going to do. And that program is what really kind of changed the game for me. And it wasn't the program itself, but what it was is it put me in community with other people who were doing something that felt really, really out of their comfort zone. And for me, even though I'd created a lot of success in network marketing, I was giving maybe 60% of my full potential. And what was so dangerous about that is my 60% effort could produce results that looked like other people's 100%. But if you know that there's more inside, and you know that you're not giving that full effort, you're really not growing. And that's what was starting to feel like this tension, this restlessness in me. So it took committing to something that I thought I had no business doing. I was not a writer, didn't like to write, never wanted to write a book. So it pushed me. So I think the first step is, it does take a goal that really has you think differently. It pushes you so far outside of your comfort zone that you require a different mindset, a different kind of community. And it's going to bring up all the fear, and it's supposed to. So for me, that was writing this book. Then I invested, and I do think, there's power in investing in accountability. I really wish I were motivated to get out of my own way and not have it cost a lot of money. I'm sure my husband would also agree with that.
He's like, oh, another mastermind.
Yeah. But I've proven myself because every time I make a big financial investment, I have so much on the line that my higher self is forced to show up. So I made this investment, and then I was in this community with other people who were also in the journey with me. So the days when we had to show up on these Zoom calls every week for 16 weeks, as we started to write our books, we had to start to bring our writing samples to the call and read it out loud. And as someone who had a lot of perfectionism, that made me want to throw open my mouth.
Yeah.
So I would come to the calls, and I remember there was this one specific day where I had talked myself into quitting. And I think we've all had that moment where the fear just becomes so intense that your logical mind starts to kick in. And it wasn't this conversation in my mind of, this is hard, I'm really challenged, and I want to quit. Here's what this sounded like. And now I call this my cute quit, because it's so sneaky. Because it's like, what it sounds like, is this, this is kind of just a distraction. You have your other business. Does this really make sense? Your bandwidth is just tapped. You're busy. Yeah. You're so busy. You should give yourself grace. You're working too much. And all of a sudden, you realize this is where it gets really uncomfortable. Everyone, when I talk on in a live audience, people get real quiet here because we all have it. We all have that voice that starts to talk us out of our own greatness. And if it weren't for the support and community of others being, so invested that I was not about to look my husband in the eye and say, yeah, that couple of grand I spent on this writing program, I'm just not going to finish it. Yeah. Was not about to do that. And I already knew what it felt like to quit. I had other big ideas that I never followed through on. And I think when I put those things together, the supportive community, investing in a mentor, someone to show me the way, putting my word to something that was just going to force me to grow, it fundamentally changed me as a person. And I don't know that I was ready for it, the years prior when I had all these other big ideas, but because I had built up such a backlog of ideas that I didn't follow through with, everything in me wanted to quit this one, everything. And on that day I showed up and I wanted to quit, because I was going to tell him in person at least. Yeah. I was going to be a woman about it. And then I read my little writing sample, wanted to die inside, and someone said, I needed to hear that today. That changed me. Good. And I was pissed, because I knew in that moment I wasn't going to quit. But when people see Powerhouse Women today, there's a very real chance that it would not exist, because I almost quit three times. There were 3 other times beyond that one. And I just want people to know, that's what it feels like when you're growing. So I still to this day set goals that bring me to that point where I want to quit, because I know the moment I want to quit means I'm getting so dangerously close to the next breakthrough.
I struggle a lot as a leader where I honor people and where they're at. Yes. I do. I absolutely do. Me, myself, my heart, my mind goes to places of like, oh, you're so close. Those moments where I do see that, where that conversation comes up. I'm not aligned right now, or I have my bandwidth. Yes. And I need to honor that, because I know everyone is so different. They don't have maybe the same energy that you and I, what we fuel off of. So I understand, but how do you navigate those type of conversations when you know that they're talking themselves out of it because of fear, because you've had those in-depth conversations? Yeah. You know what I mean?
I really learned that lesson in that same season when I was coaching others, mentoring others, specifically in network marketing. And so I made a lot of trial and error, but I feel like what helped me start to even draw in a higher level of person was when I started to begin a mentorship relationship, whether it was in network marketing or some of the higher level mentorship I do now, by having people call themselves out on what it looks like when they want to cute quit. So I would have them think about what are the excuses that you make when you get really uncomfortable? And I think when I could bring them to the surface at the beginning, and we would have a conversation about them. So if you and I were working together in that way, I would just say, what are some of yours? You would tell me. And then I would say flat out, how do you want me to show up for you when you're in that moment? Wow. Because when people feel like they're in the driver's seat of their own transformation, number one, it's starting to instill that feeling of personal power. But I think our role as mentors and as leaders is to always lead ourselves first, but also to be the kind of mentors where it teaches them to not need us anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think when I would have the conversation about like, well, what does it look like? What have you quit on before? And what does that look like? What do you think you need in order to move past that? And how do you want me to respond? The moment someone wanted to put the responsibility on me, well, I just need you to check in with me, or I just need, this or that, then it would just allow for this really beautiful opportunity to put the responsibility, to put the ownership mm-hmm. back on their shoulders, so that they could, because what we want is to help them connect with their own power. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, there will always be some that aren't ready, or it's not the right time. And my job is to lead the leaders who want to be led. Mm-hmm. And there will always be space, even within what I'm doing now, there will always be space for people who want to go at whatever pace works for them. But I can already feel your energy, and you are a powerful leader. You're meant to work with people who want to go at that speed. And the moment you draw that line in the sand and you allow people just to be at the place where they're at, it can be scary, because at first it feels like, oh gosh, now there's not anybody who wants to run at that pace. But there's this weird thing that happens when you're ready to level up, especially as a leader, like in this example. There's a little bit of space. It's clearing out old energy to make space for the new. Mm-hmm. But when you raise the bar for yourself and you really set that standard of who you want to be working with at that capacity, I'm very woo in this, but it really just shifts the energy around you and starts to draw in different people. Because I spent a lot of time wanting it more for people than they wanted it themselves. Mm-hmm.
I feel like y'all are getting a live coaching experience here with me. I'm just like
really just coaching myself as well.
No, you are speaking to my soul right now. It is, I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
This is such a great conversation. And we can go on, but let's shift a little bit, because you mentioned, we've talked a lot about women and like the bandwidth too, and all of that. What is your take on, hustle culture versus honoring, yourself, giving yourself grace is like a big thing. Like that mm-hmm. soft girl era is like really big right now. But like knowing you have to work at a certain speed to get to your most audacious dreams. Like how do you balance that and level that out?
It's such a great question. And I feel like I'm learning new things about this mm-hmm. all the time for myself, because on one hand, when I look back at my journey, it took the level of work that I put in order to create what I've created. But here's the biggest thing that I'm learning about that. It's not so much about the amount of work I'm doing or the number of hours I'm working, it's how. Mm-hmm. And I think where hustle culture can start to feel like it's fueled by this never-ending search for fulfillment, search for validation. And if we're not careful and we're attaching like our production to our worthiness. So that was very much how it was for me. Like if I'm not working, I don't have as much worth. I don't have as much value. I felt lazy. To realize that these big visions of ours are going to require us to put in work, whether it's our own blood, sweat, tears, or now I have an amazing team that I get to create with. Yeah. But yes, it's going to take effort, probably more than any of us realize. And also, it requires us to change the relationship with that effort, so that I think that's where when we talk about like the opposite of hustle culture, like soft girl era, is more about how I'm operating, not how much I'm working. Because I actually am very soft. I have a very like open schedule. I work a lot of my action is very intuitively led, which is more like the soft girl vibe. But when inspiration hits, I just will go. And I had to get to this point where I realized my pace doesn't have to be everyone else's pace. I have a really, a high energy level, a high battery for just being able to do a lot. And I just love that about myself. So I think when we are comparing ourselves to like what other people say is hustle culture, or you shouldn't be working until 8 p.m. at night, I love what I do so much. And I think from the outside, if someone looked at how much I work, it could look like that hustle and grind. But the way that I'm working is actually filled with so much flow and, if we want to call it, alignment, and things that make it really sustainable for my energy. But it took me over a decade to get there, because I came from this place very much where I now see I was attaching my worth to how much I worked. And in that way of operating, I would just make up work so I could feel more fulfilled. Yeah.
It's like the switch of being more intentional with the time, because people think you have to like go all day to make your business work, make it run. But in truth, you can be more intentional and really like pin down certain things for a certain amount of short time, and you can have so much more balance and flexibility in that.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I think that's a lot of like the burnout everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere, not just like owning your own business, but I think a lot of people start businesses for the time freedom, right? Let's be really real here. And then realize, wait, where's all my time? It's being sucked away, but it's the intentionality behind that.
And then they don't admit it, so they say that they're grinding and hustling and doing all of these things to make it look like it's all worth it, when in reality it's like, no, you're probably not being intentional with your time. You're not working efficiently. You're just doing as much as you can to show like you're doing as much as you can, when really you're probably not doing the right things the right way either.
It's like hashtag grind mode.
Beast
mode.
Hashtag please stop grinding, just work efficiently.
That sounds painful.
It does sound painful. I mean, but there does take sacrifice, right? So what were some of the sacrifices that you needed to make, not only in the beginning, but also to like shift into this new flow that you have? What are some sacrifices that you have now? What does that look like?
So many. I mean, I don't necessarily know if I relate to them as sacrifices. As I'm checking in right now, I'm like, well, I don't spend as much time with friends and family as other people may.
We're having all the... They knew you wanted to dance today, so we're having all the
vibe in here.
Sometimes our Sonos just
kicks on.
No, it'll happen when Mike connects, and it's just
it connects to the
loud
Bluetooth
on his phone, so it'll just be that loud. And loud here is like super loud.
And then it like will tell you immediately what he was last listening to. Has it ever been like an embarrassing song?
No, we jam out.
Okay.
No, but sometimes
it just hits us
Justin Bieber, and you're like, really, Bieber fever.
Sometimes it'll go on a lot longer than that. It'll be like 20 seconds. It's like, oh my gosh, please stop it. It's so loud.
Yeah, Mike's a huge Tay Swift fan, so I'm surprised that wasn't blasting.
I did pin him as a Swiftie.
No, we just knew you wanted to twerk by the end of this conversation, so we're getting it ready.
People are going to be sadly disappointed by my twerk.
We'll get to that, because that's all energy and goodness that you bring.
I have no idea what I was talking about.
We were talking about... God knows.
I actually
I'm
don't know
a mom of three. I don't retain a lot.
It wasn't important. I guess it wasn't important.
Mom brain is real.
We were coming off the back of the hustle culture type of thing, but we had moved on.
Grind mode.
Not as much.
Nope.
And then it was. And then we moved on to something else. The listeners are probably screaming right now.
Yeah. They're like, you were talking about this.
Give me the answers.
We don't have the ability to rewind back. Let's just flow with it. Let's just go with it.
Wasn't important.
Wasn't important. Obviously it was. Let's go into what Powerhouse is. When you had the thought of, okay, I'm, moving my business, my energy into this space, what did you dream of it looking like, and what has it evolved to now?
So that book that I ended up writing, I titled it Powerhouse Woman. Just one. And it was really written to the woman like you or I when we were at like the beginning stages of pursuing that big dream, and really wanting to instill in her the realization that you don't have to like achieve more or become something or take these 10 steps to become a powerhouse. That's actually already within you. And pointing people back to what's already within them and giving them some tools for how to overcome the fear, how to work with that, and just feel less alone in the process. The book was never meant to be more than just that, honestly. I wrote it just to prove to myself that I could. And I remember like the night before it released, I just said this prayer and I was like, okay, I release it. Wherever you want it to go, God, whatever you want to do with this, It's out of my hands. And around the launch time, my publisher, editor said, well, a lot of people will do like a book launch event. And I had never really considered that. I'd gone to a lot of network marketing events and always loved that, that culture and just the positivity. And so I started to think about, well, what would that look like if we did an event in celebration of this book? And what came to mind was just the thought of taking so many of the concepts that were in the book and bringing in different speakers and just really speaking to the heart of that woman who wanted to do big things but maybe felt a little scared. So we did the first ever Powerhouse Women event. Now we're plural.
More than one.
Although I remember thinking so small for that first event, I just assumed I'd have it in someone's living room. Was thinking maybe 30, maybe 50 people. Eventually hired, I was in a spin class one day, and then I stalked the instructor afterward on Instagram because she had a great playlist, and in her bio it said she was a wedding planner. So I remember sitting in her office and I was like, I have this idea for an event. Could you help me? And just little by little, these pieces came together. And we did that very first ever Powerhouse Women event. And at the end, I remember standing on stage, just kind of waving, and I was like, well, thanks for coming. And people were like, what's next? What else? And I was like, this is literally it. I have not thought past this moment.
How many people showed up?
100.
Wow.
And I remember looking around the room and number one, wondering how they found it because I didn't know over half the room, but also realizing, oh, wow, I'm not alone. More women want to have this conversation. And although I was still struggling at that point to really own that I was someone people wanted to listen to, or I could think of so many other people who seemed more qualified to be doing this kind of work than me, it helped to awaken something in my heart that I don't think I was connected with yet. So it took another few months. It wasn't until early the following year that I said, well, okay, we can maybe do another event. And from there, it really snowballed. So the event was the first touch point for this community that was forming. And from there, it was really our third year of doing the annual event that I was like, oh, this is a thing. Maybe I should turn this into like an actual business. And then, there was this whole other chapter where I had to make a big decision to make because my network marketing team was doing really well. And now I had this other vision that I felt even more pulled to pursue. And I did have to make a choice at a certain point, just in order to go all in on one. And that ended up being Powerhouse Women. But I never had the vision for what this was going to become. And I think when we are pursuing a really, really big vision, that's something that I always thought you're supposed to have like this very clear 10-year plan. I still to this day don't see further than maybe 6 months to a year out. I still don't know what the 5-year vision of Powerhouse Women is ultimately going to look like. I have ideas. But if I'm trying to paint that 10-year picture as my current self, I'm limited by the beliefs that I currently hold. And I'm going to be a completely different person a year from now, 3-5 years from now. So I've just had to settle into this trust that I will be given the next like little breadcrumb when I'm ready to keep pushing the boundaries of how big I'm thinking, but stay very flexible. And I think this is kind of where the difference between like the hustle and alignment comes. Have a vision and know how I want it to feel, but be very flexible and unattached on the timeline and exactly how that comes together.
Wow, that is so true. You entered your Rachel Hollis era like that. Do you remember Rachel Hollis?
Well, I know I'm like, does she have an era?
Well, I mean, no, she's like but when she first launched and it was like, boom, I think I just remember reading her book, very similar, and then she started putting on events, and it was like everyone was reading Rachel Hollis, going to her events, like hearing her speak. Yeah. She was getting booked everywhere. And it really was her just taking that chance of like, I'm a everyday mom, but I have something to say. And I'm going to go on those stages and I'm going to dance around and bring that energy. And I'm like, that's kind of what I envision with this launch and the growth that you've experienced with this. That's insane. So it was 2017.
2017 was the first ever event. So 2024 this year will be our 8th event, but 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so how has that evolved since that first event with 100 women in there to now?
I mean, it's grown so much. I mean, we have a podcast, so that, has helped us just reach women in the furthest corners of the world that I never even imagined. And so we do an event. I mean, this year we'll have 800 or more people in the room. We have thousands who watch online, who live stream it from all over the world. And it's just beyond. I mean, I think the thing that has surprised me the most is it's the way that these women have really rallied around our motto is you're not meant to do business or life alone, but I really believe we're changing the culture of how people believe women interact with each other. Like when people say, well, women are catty and competitive, that is like so far from the truth. And it's just really time to retire that narrative, because women are the most collaborative, supportive, genuine, and I think heart-driven entrepreneurs that I've ever met. It's just kind of in our DNA. And we really are wired to collaborate. And that's the bigger mission of what I think we're showing the world is possible.
Yeah, women need community, period. And it doesn't matter if it's like, 4 women that are your accountability buddies or gym buddies or whatever. You just need it. And specifically, obviously, you're solving a problem here with people feeling alone in business. And who do I talk to? Who do I go to? Because entrepreneurship can be lonely if you allow it to be. Yeah. But this really opens up the ability to reach new heights in your business because you have someone that's been through something. Exactly. That's gone through that road, the ups and downs, and can, give you permission to keep going in this. I love it. So what does it look like to be, is it like a member of Powerhouse Women?
Such a great question. Okay. So
because I'm signing up.
I was going to say,
I already signed up for the event.
Oh, you did?
Well, the wait list.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect. Yes, because the tickets will go on sale in March. So yes, I mean, that's really the best way to plug in. So we do a live annual conference. This year it's in August in Scottsdale, Arizona. We haven't decided if we're doing the live stream option again or not. Just it's kind of getting to the point where we have to make those bigger decisions. But
can I just say that I love that it's here. Like, Arizona needs this. Yeah, Arizona needs this. So I love that it's here. Okay, go on.
Well, me too. It just makes it very convenient because then it's right down the street from my house. And I think Arizona is so special. And yes, is it hot in summer? Of course it is. But people don't seem to mind. No. We start it with a Friday night. So you want to do the VIP ticket because Friday night we have a pajama party kickoff. Fun. We come. There's twerking.
I was like, is there twerking?
Yeah, you will see Priscilla and Patty.
Just like what I needed.
Twerking in pajamas. Okay. And then Saturday is a day of speakers and content just really designed to pour back into all of you and the big dreams inside you. You do not have to be an entrepreneur. I'll get that question a lot. It's really for anyone who wants to grow in their career. They want to grow in their life, in their business if they have one. They want to be a better mother, a better friend, someone who contributes and gives back. So it's not business focused. It's really, really designed to help you evolve into the person who's going to fulfill those big dreams. So the event is kind of like our Super Bowl. It's like our New Year's Eve. Okay. So if you could have the Super Bowl on New Year's Eve, that's what Powerhouse Women is. Yep. With like sparkles and sequins. And then we have the podcast. So the Powerhouse Women podcast is the other place to just get plugged in and on social media, because we really want to expand the opportunities for people to get together in person. So retreats, upcoming other event ideas, we'll kind of keep everyone in the loop there. But that is really, I think, where we shine and where our biggest contribution is the way that we curate experiences. So someone will walk in that room and they will walk out a different, more confident version of themselves. And I see it year after year after year. And then the people who've been coming for several years just to watch their transformation and the impact that they're making is pretty cool.
I've seen like the flashback promo videos, all of that, and it's just so much energy. Yeah. And I've been so blessed to be able to watch Tony Robbins live, and that was like the most. I compare it to like taking me to church, right?
Yes,
and like
it totally is.
The synergy, the energy that he brings, and like the jumping up and down, and there's like a reason for that. Yeah. So were you kind of tapping into a little bit of that, like when you brought in the idea of twerking, of dancing, of movement? Because in the videos, I just see like the best party ever, and I'm like, I need to sign up. I'm there. But what was your idea behind implementing so many different things, specifically honing in on energy.
Yeah. I always have to tell people, like, we do other things beyond just dancing. Like the videos that we share are, you know, really capturing the energy. But yeah, I mean, the energy you create in the room is ultimately what changes people and impacts them. And I have seen Tony, not one of his like longer couple day events, but you know, I've been around that energy, been impacted myself. But you know, the event is one of those things that I just every single year kind of get a vision. I start to tune into the energy of the people who are coming and what they need and who they need as far as the speakers. And what's so beautiful about it is our community has the most talented, brilliant, incredible women. We were talking about two good friends of mine who are a part of the event every year, Patty and Priscilla, and they're like our hype women. And I knew we needed to bring in an element of movement because number one, especially as women, we hold a lot in our physical bodies. So just being able to like move some of that out, and it reconnects. I know that's why I love dance. It reconnects me with the power. It gets me out of my head and back into my body and like into my heart and really where my power and my creativity comes from. So yeah, I really look at it as sort of like this orchestra that I get to put together of all the right elements, like enough motivation, enough of the tactical, enough of the surprises and the things that are going to push people out of their comfort zone. And then the collective energy of how everyone supports one another. It really is, I'm very biased, but it's my favorite day of the entire year.
I am so excited. I'm ready. I'm ready to twerk. I'm ready to
can't wait.
Be moved. I'm ready for all the motivation. My question for you, though, is how do you set people up beyond like the podcast, right? And like just tapping in or touching in with people. Like what is your messaging for after they leave the event? Because events are very powerful and you can feel very transformed and ready to just like tackle the world afterwards, right? And like there's no limit. But then you get home, right? And so what is your advice for that in-between time where you can actually truly change your life based off what you learned, what you overcame throughout that weekend or that event, soul event, and to really, really utilize those tools?
Yeah. It's so true, right? Like that event high, and then there's a little bit of a crash. I even feel it. And, you know, it's good just to know, and I think to acknowledge that is kind of like the cycle, and it's actually not sustainable to stay on that high of energy all the time. But for us, I mean, we have a program that we always offer people coming right out of the event to stay connected, to stay accountable, to get those next couple of action steps. But whether people join us in that program that's called Six Figure School, or whether they just meet and connect with other friends from the event and stay in touch, those are sometimes my favorite stories of the women who they're like, we just all ended up sitting by each other, and now we do a Zoom call every single week, and we talk about our goals and we support each other. So I think it's maybe even back to what we were talking about before. What do you know about yourself and where you tend to give up or where you tend to fall off and have the energy crash? Or if you know that you're going to go back home and your significant other doesn't get it, your friends don't get it, and it is going to be vital for you to stay plugged in to people who are not intimidated or don't think your big dreams are weird. And so knowing what you need and then going into the weekend with that intention, like, hey, I want to meet at least one other person, either someone who lives in my city or near me, or someone who will be like my virtual accountability buddy, and stay connected to the energy, because it's not something that is supposed to stay consistent. And I think it's always so helpful to have friends who you're going to want to quit on different days. So you can kind of talk each other out of like those moments that it just gets really challenging and you feel like you're pressing up against that next evolution, because ultimately that's really what it's all about. We're not meant to do this alone.
I love that so much. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot since you're the big dreamer and you challenge everyone to dream big here. What is the scariest dream you have next for yourself?
So I have this sense that, and this is one of those longer term visions that I don't know exactly how it's going to come together. And I also am very clear that I'm not supposed to try to make it happen, which is very against my nature. That Powerhouse Women is meant to have a much bigger platform in media, whether that means TV or I actually think it could be a form of media that like we don't see it yet. There's not an example because even TV is changing. Yeah. But I do think that there is a global national media platform opportunity, and that scares me. There's a part of me who's very much even more introverted than extroverted, and I'm preparing myself right now to be in a place just ready to handle more visibility, more responsibility, and the things that come along with that if that opportunity presents itself. But it's like weirdly in the atmosphere, meaning like I'll have people reach out constantly and say, you need a TV show. Uh-oh. Or it's true. So if someone listening, yeah,
watch
exactly.
out.
And the last person who said that, I went to her bio and she is a TV producer and she has a production company with Beyonce's dad. I'm telling you folks, it's getting closer.
It's coming.
But it's one of those like further out dreams that I don't know how to make it happen. And so I know that my work is just to keep developing myself into the kind of leader that like, it's not even so much about, I need to be TV ready. I'm getting my character ready where I can still stay just as grounded. I can stay just as connected to my vision, where if a bigger opportunity comes, it's not really going to change me that much. It's just like, oh, cool. Now it's a bigger spotlight for the women that I get to impact.
Yeah, preparing for that moment. I love that. Well, we'll be watching if you're...
These are the receipts.
Next to Beyonce one day at the Grammys.
Obviously twerking.
I remember when... Obviously.
I'm waiting for her call any day now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I wish we had music in here. We can just end the show. Just a quick twerk competition.
Just... Oh,
you spoke my love language in so many ways today. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, I feel like I just got coached and my mindset. I'm ready to walk out here, take on the world.
We're ready to be golden grannies.
Yes, and be golden grannies together. New bestie. All right, well, thank you so much, and we appreciate you. We love you here at Safe 48, and thank you again for coming in during Speaker Series 2 and blessing our stage. So much goodness ahead as well.
Thank you.
All right.